welcome back to the next video on creating your own version of Twitter. Now in the previous video we've just created our database, so now let's go ahead and turn that into a working app and UI. Now it's a little bit of a chicken and egg problem on exactly where you want to start doing this, but personally I want to start by creating the exact sign up and login flow that I want. Then I'll go ahead and create a button for making tweets, and finally I'll use some of those tweets I'm going to create to start populating a list or almost a feed of social media tweets here on the homepage. So the first thing that I'm going to do is add a new screen. I'm going to give that app bar as a template, and I'm going to call this setup. So I'll just create that screen now, and it immediately zooms me straight into that screen. But what I want to do is, if I've got a sign up screen here, which takes the email, password and full name of the user, then I want to move them onto a setup screen where they can start to add things like their handle and their profile picture. So I'm going to take the sign up screen here, and immediately I'm going to come in and disconnect the current link that it has. I'm going to take this setup page, drag it in here. Oops, I didn't quite make enough space. So we'll just move that along and move that one along too. And then what we're going to do is add a form to this page. Now there's a few ways you can do this, but the way I'm going to do it is to add this form on here. And what I'm going to say is this data collection is related to users. So this screen is going to be for updating the user, and that user will have just signed up here, and then we'll skip over to the next screen. So we'll say, what do we want the form to do? We want to update the logged in user. We want to go into the fields. Now we're going to take out email, password, we don't need any of that, but I do want handle. I'm going to add one more field. In fact, we don't have it yet. Let's say we want to also upload a picture for the user. I'll quickly pop into my database. I'll add a little property here saying image. We'll call that the profile photo. We'll save that. And we'll just quickly update the form to include that in it as well. Add a visible file. There we go. We'll do that in there. We can also put a little note on the handle that says don't include at symbol, which just tells our users, well, not to include the at symbol. So we can just do that, and if I pop back to my sign up submit button, I can make that link over to the setup page. So we can just hit link and I can select setup. And that's just one of our click actions here. Now you get all sorts of different transitions. You can mess around with them, play around to see what you like. I'm just going to leave it as a default push, and I'm not going to bother setting up any advanced options at the minute. So it's just a simple link. So what will happen is when the user signs up, they'll hit the sign up page. That will then take them through to the setup page. And then we've got update user down here. We could change that to say something a little bit more fitting, like get started. And we'll also add another action here which says, okay, link to the home screen. So two alternative ways the user can come in. They can come in and sign up and go to the home screen via the setup page, or they can come in, log in, and that will take them straight to the home screen. As we can see, Adalo has set up by default. You could add another screen on here. You could just quickly do a welcome screen, which is a template that Adalo has. I could call that welcome. And if I zoom out from my canvas, which I'm just doing with my trackpad, I could take that, move that there, and we could do a couple of things just to style this. You can see in the bottom right hand corner of my screen I've downloaded a picture of Twitter, so I could come in here, I could remove, I could just hit choose image, just grab this one right there, upload that. I could say Twitter. You could write sign into Twitter or whatever you want. I'll just leave that as Twitter. Another little thing I can do, I don't know how much you've used Twitter, but just to make sure I get the styling exactly right, when I take, for example, when I hit the sign up button here on the sign up page, I can hit edit styles, and I can give that button a little bit more of a rounded appearance. I just think that looks a little bit more like the actual Twitter app itself, which I recently downloaded. I can drag that along for the welcome screen and for the login screen. I can hit edit styles. Now one thing just to notice there, depending on the exact component you're using and where, occasionally the various different styling options will show up in the menu like this, like shadow, uppercase, rounding, etc. Other times you'll have to find a component and then hit edit styles. I think Adalo just does that to save space in slightly more complicated components. But we go to a sign up page, we'll quickly add a couple of little actions. This one will link to the sign up page. So when I click that sign up button, oops, I don't think I saved that. Yep, when they click that sign up button, they'll go to the sign up page. And if they hit already have an account, then we'll just take them over to the login page. So there we go. We've got an entire login functionality working. I'll just go double check that it actually works as we intend. So if I hit preview at the top, now clearly I could go do this on my mobile phone, and I'll do that soon so that I can create tweets from multiple accounts. But here I've got the sign up page. It's already pre-populated my details just because I've used the Adalo preview before. I'll hit sign up. My handle I'm just going to put as Niall. A profile picture, well I happen to have one of those handy as well. That's very convenient. You can just see it spinning while it uploads. There we go, there's me. Hit get started and immediately it takes me to the blank home screen. So I can hit log out whenever I like, and if I now have an account I can come in here. I can just do, well it's Niall at NoCode.Tech, put my password in, hit log in. Boom, I'm in again. You'll have noticed it didn't take me to the welcome screen. Why is that? Well, by default, if you have a look here, the sign up screen has this little icon next to it, and that means it's a default welcome screen. I have to come in here to my welcome screen, and I have to, I have to hit this little pen. I have to hit screen navigation type and change that from normal screen to welcome screen. Hit done. And then if I pop into my preview again, you'll see that when I land on the home page and log out, so hit log out, and then if I close that, if I come back in, then it will take me to the Twitter landing screen. So this is what all our users would see on their first download of the app. So anyway, we'll go ahead and we'll log in with Niall at NoCode.Tech, put a password in, log in. So that brings us up to the home page. Then the next thing that I want to do is add a I guess a button just to create a tweet. This is starting to get into a CRUD methodology. So how do we create, read, update and delete data related to tweets? And again, if you've not heard that phrase, check out the NoCode Fundamentals video, specifically the workflows pillar. So when I select the top app bar here on the home that is already there by default, down at the kind of component selection, I can choose to put on a left icon and you'll see a little menu pops there. I'm going to turn that off. Or I can put on a right icon. Now all that's happening here is Adalo's components have got various pre-made things that can show up, components that can show up that fit existing Android and iOS I guess conventions of design. You know, the idea in Adalo is as much as you can do what you like, it's trying to keep you as close to a good looking, normal looking app as much as possible, because you want your users to be instantly familiar. So I can go ahead and enable this right icon, and I'm going to use this to create a tweet button. So I already know I don't want it to say, I don't want it to have a heart. I'm going to type in edit to find the right icon. I'm going to do this little pen. So that's going to be my little pen for creating a tweet. And what we're going to say here is we're going to create an action, but I'm not going to hit create tweet. I'm actually going to make it create an entirely new screen. So I'm going to hit new screen, and I've got some pre-options here. If you go through, you've got all sorts. You can do different types of lists. You can do different intro screens. You can do an unbolding screen, info, yada, yada, yada. I'm just going to pick a form. I'm going to call this one new tweet. And the reason it's a form is, as we know, a form is a component that lets us add data entered by the user into a database. Now again, because I've added that new screen, Adalo's just set up that link action like we've done in the last few screens. And if I go over here to my new tweet, there's all sorts of little fields here that I don't necessarily need. So let's dive in. So I'm going to select tweets, and I want it to create a new tweet. That's correct. If I pop into my fields, again, as you might have saw in the basics of Adalo video, I can select between visible fields that the user can edit here on the right and non-visible fields. So as you can see, it's automatically going to set my tweeter, and if you remember from our database earlier, the tweeter is the user who actually is making the tweet. So in this case, if I was writing this tweet, it would be me. It's going to be set to the currently logged in user, whoever that may be in the future. So we'll pop in here, we'll leave that, we're going to delete ID. We're going to configure this tweet field so that instead of being a single line input, if you watch the new tweet over here, we're going to hit multi-line. That'll open up the box a bit. We could change this to say what do you want to tweet? Can set that as required. I'm going to add another automatic field. This time I'm going to put the ID in here. Apologies for the noise, that was the police racing past. So I'm going to put that tweet in there, and where it says ID, this is where we run into a slightly tricky scenario, because what I want to do here is create a unique way to identify this tweet. There's a couple of ways you can do that. You could generate a random number, or you could use the various different variables that Adalo has here to try and create some sort of unique combination of text that is never going to be replicated again, and that's how you can give this a unique ID. It would be great if Adalo had their own ID generating function. By the time you watch this video, they may already have it, but instead I'm going to mess about with a few other things. I'm going to put current time in, put a little hyphen. What else could we put in here? I'm going to do current time, I'm going to do the handle, and what else have we got? And I'm going to do a unique count of tweets and a unique count of the users. So you might be wondering, why am I putting all this random data in here? Well, what I'm trying to create is what we call a random string, and by putting the current time, the current logged in user's name, a count of all the tweets, and even a count of the users, which to be fair might be a step too far, I could maybe take that away. By doing all of this, I'm essentially making a random collection of words and numbers that will never be replicated again, because every single time a user tweets, the tweet count will go up. Clearly the current time of day is always going to be different. I can change that, by the way, from relative and make that something like this date here. So I can make all these little changes, and this is just going to generate a really unique ID. You might find that a bit weird. Don't worry about it too much. Just copy it. But if you ever find yourself needing to make unique identification numbers in future, this is a good way of doing it. This combination of data can never be the same twice, as far as I can see. So we've essentially got everything set up. This is going to automatically tie the tweet to the user. It's going to capture the text, and it is of course going to set the ID. And the submit button, as you can see, will automatically create that tweet. So now it's using that CRUD methodology of, going in here, hitting create tweet, so on and so forth. But it'll also take the user back to the home screen. So I could come in here, hit preview. And just wait for it to load up. It can take a little while once you've started to add some various different features. But I can hit the edit button up top, takes me to the tweet screen. I can say this is my first tweet. Hit create tweet. Now nothing's showing up yet. I'll show you why in a second. So this is my first tweet. I could say this is my second tweet. I could say hello no coders, which sounds like the kind of thing I would say on Twitter, to be fair. So nothing's shown up yet, and that is of course for the really simple reason that we've not yet created our repeating data list and put that on the home page. So I'm going to come down here. Now I've got this element, when I hit add component, I've got this element that says simple list. I don't want that one. I actually want this other one called custom list. And a custom list is just essentially Adalo's way of saying you can put whatever components you like into a list and it will display them. So it's going to say, well, what's this a repeating data list of? Well, of course it's tweets. And we'll worry about filters and all that kind of thing later. What I want to do for now is make sure this looks right visually. Now this can be a little bit tricky to get right. Just as a quick tip for you, this doesn't work great at the minute today as of writing on Safari. I had a few issues doing this in Safari, which is why I've switched to Chrome, which is not my preferred browser. But I did have a few issues using this, and I'll show you why. They might show up on here as well, they might not. Just takes a little bit of wrangling. But I want to create a couple of new components. I want to create a, first of all, an image. So if I hit that, I can drag that on here, and let me just drag that down into a reasonable size to be moving around. So if I drag this on the list, you'll see that it's replicating a few times. This is because Adalo recognises it's a custom list with custom components, and so each component I drag on here should be repeated. And you'll see everything I'm moving is moving along with it. I need to probably drag that a little bit further over and a little bit further over again. So there we go. Another thing I'm going to do is I'm going to come in, I'm going to edit the style, and I am going to set the rounding all the way to the very top. Because what that will do is more or less turn this into a circle as long as the width and the height are the same, which they're not yet, so let's just fix that. And that's just a good tip because that more or less applies in any no-code tool. If you want something that looks more or less rounded, set the rounding to the absolute maximum available, which tends to be either something like 18, 25 or 99, and then make sure the width and the height are the same size, and there you go, you get a nice little circle. Now it's asking what's the image source. If I go to database, you might make the mistake of saying, well, it's a logged in user's image. That's not actually true. You want the current tweet. And the reason Adalo knows it's a current tweet is this is of course, a list of tweets. So if we go to the current tweet, i.e. the current tweet on this particular row item, which will be different for each row item all the way down. If we go there, we can go to Tweeter, which gives us access to the person who tweets it, that user's information, and we can of course grab their profile photo. And so when I log in there, if I have multiple accounts, it's going to show up, if I have multiple accounts with multiple tweets, it's going to show up a different profile photo for each person. You can also set something here that says, if there's no image, then show a placeholder image. For example, you could do the Twitter egg. I'll just put don't show anything for simplicity, and we'll leave that there for now. The other thing I'm going to do is come in and edit these titles and subtitles. So what I want the title to show is the handle. So I'm going to say the current tweet, give me the tweeter, let me get their handle. I'm going to put a little @ symbol in front of them, which means it's always going to show up with a little @ just like it does on Twitter. The other thing that I'm going to do is put a little hyphen. I'm going to go back in here, I'm going to take the current tweet, I'm going to take the created date, and if I click that, it's going to show me that it's relative. Relative format means it will show me when was this tweet created relative to right this second. So it will say something like the tweet was a few minutes ago, it was 10 days ago, etc. And I'm just going to format that a little bit differently as well. Just make it, first of all, a little bit lighter, and then I'm going to do it a little bit smaller. Why am I doing that? Well, if you look at Twitter, this is kind of roughly how it looks as well. We'll drag that up there slightly out the way. I might have put that too high, but we'll put that there. And then I'm going to delete this word subtitle on the second part. I'm going to put the current tweet, and of course I'm just going to select tweet. So that should show the current tweet, created date. Let's just preview that and see if it's looking right so far. And there we go. So does it look beautiful? No, not quite. But it is starting to give us an idea of how this is supposed to look. We've got a list of all the different tweets that I just made a few minutes ago. You can see when I made them, it says 5 minutes for all of them because I made them all pretty quickly. But it's starting to show the time, it's showing my name, etc. The other couple of things that we're going to need in here is a like button and a retweet button or a favoriting button. So what I can do is if I come back into my list component, I've still got this list selected. Then I can go to components and add more. I can add, this time, I'm going to scroll into buttons and I'm going to look for a toggle. So this is a button that can toggle on and off because of course you can retweet something, you can unretweet it, you can add a favourite, etc. So I'm just going to pop that in there and you'll see it shows up nicely. So clearly I want a different icon for this. If you've been on Twitter recently, we'll call this one, we'll say this one's the retweet. So if you've been on Twitter recently, you'll know it looks a little bit like, it's almost like a circle. It's not quite like that, it's more of a square. Should have the icon down here somewhere. And these are all really good, by the way. One little tip for searching through the list of Adalo icons is rather than search, for example, bell, which you might search if you were looking for that one there, search something like notification. So here we go, we've got the retweet ones here. So it's called repeat in this. So I'm going to say when it's active, I want repeat 1. And when I'm going to say when it's inactive, I just want the basic repeat. So what that means is, a toggle is a yes or no. It's the same as a checkbox that you might have seen elsewhere. It's a yes or a no. It's either on or it's off. It's either active or inactive. When it's active, we want to show this little repeat 1. When it's inactive, we want to show it without the little 1 in the middle. The active colour gets set by default from your brand. I'm going to change that to a sort of green. No, it's not quite right. But I'm going to say, when the retweet is toggled on, then it should be green. And you've got this little action right at the top that says, well, what does this toggle? And I'm just going to say for the current tweet, it simply toggles whether the retweeters includes the logged in user. So what will happen is when this is active, when the user has toggled this, when the logged in user has hit the retweet button, it will include the logged in user as a relationship with the tweets via retweeters. So essentially what this is saying is whenever you click that, it will create a relationship between the current logged in user and the tweet. Really, really simple. And of course, when you unclick it, it will uncreate that relationship. So really creating the ability to do a retweet is as simple as that. And I'm just going to give this a name up here to make it stand out, retweet button. What I'm going to do though is I'm just going to copy and paste that. So I'm hitting Control C and pressing Control V. Now it doesn't look like anything's happened, but actually it's copy and pasted right on top of it. I'll drag that there. I'm going to immediately rename this to the like button. And we'll now just change this up to do favorites or likes. So we'll now say the current tweet, its likers includes the logged in user. Instead of this, we're going to say favorite, pick that first one. We'll change the color to be sort of pinkish red. Yep, that looks about right. It's probably slightly less right. I think I got it right the first time. And we'll also do the empty heart for that one. There we go. And so if I come into the preview, I can hit retweet, it'll show up like that. I can hit favourite, it'll come up like that. I can retweet this one, can favourite that one, so on and so forth. And there you go, you know, you're starting to get an interface that feels a little bit more like real Twitter. Now that will have immediately made those changes on a database. I can come in, I can check that out, simply by going records. I can say, right, who's retweeted this? Hello NoCoder's tweet. Well, it's immediately got that link through to the user. You can see I didn't retweet this is my second tweet, so it's not got a retweeter there, but you can see it's starting to build up those relationships. And so we've got the Billy basics here of the ability to sign up and log in. We've got the ability to create a new tweet. We've got a list, we can retweet, we can favourite. Now what we're going to do in the next video is just start to make it a little bit more complex. We'll mess around by adding some more tweets in. We will add a few filters in, and I'll also look at how we can use the profile.